What is family good for, Fox News? I say that because you make statements about people staying in their parents' basement, like that's any of your business, for one thing, but like you want them living with Mr. Caveman and splitting rent right out of high school, right out of college or whatever. Like you want them not to save any money and buy a house, not to invest with family, not to you want them to get a mortgage from the bank to buy a house or buy land? Okay, look, nobody's good enough to have land. It's almost like nobody's good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough. You're not good enough until you get that grade. You got to get that A plus. You got to get that one again. You got to get another A plus, another A plus, another A plus, another A plus, a degree, a degree, a degree, a degree. Then you're able to start saving money and get land or a house. No, because you can't go. According to them, it's the craziest thing on earth to go live with your family. That's a natural stepping stone. You should want people. First of all, parents should be taught and should want their children to use the stepping stone they've given to them. They've put all that time into raising them to put them out there broken in debt to rent out somewhere and not own anything. Who's that for? Is that for the banks? Is that for international rental companies? To have an entire rental society in America? Is that for the government to take over capital because they have to give you loans or they have to give you grants to start a business instead of you staying in your natural nest to use as a boosting board if you get along and if you're not in complete disagreement? Okay, I understand this might not be a conspiracy. It may be that you fell for the stereotype. I'm a Fox News supporter. I meant to say that early on, sorry. I support most of Fox News stuff, but they say comments such as they make fun of people on the computers, men especially, who go on social sites and who get into politics or do whatever else. And I can understand that when they're going against somebody like Antifa doing it, but when it's somebody promoting good things, Donald Trump would not have got elected without everybody going on social sites that go on there and try to speak well and defy a lie, then media. So we defy a mainstream media lie when we go online and stuff. So are you just getting mixed up and telling Antifa to get out of their parents' basement? And I think in that case, those parents should put them out of the basement. But anyhow, so to give, I've probably covered everything pretty quick on this intro, but I mean, who do you want them to go rent from? Split the rent with Mr. Caveman? I said that, but who is that? Somebody from the drug cartels? Some stranger? Is it somebody who wants them to split the rent just to get their money, to save themselves a little money, but not much? They're not owning anything because they didn't have a boosting board. They didn't have a family. I think I have a vision for America here. Look. You are good enough you should want to have land. You should want to have things. That's not greedy. You're supposed to try to provide for yourself and succeed. And so you can be able to provide for homeless people if you want, if you're a Christian and have a gift for either encouragement or compassion. It's not for everybody necessarily, but I think everybody should not be for it and not against it. It might not be your specific thing, but to help homeless people build a house, you can, right out of high school, you can invest in land. I would say everybody should, before you leave your house, we'll put it like this. Let's be specific. If you're in a family that gets along, it should be the goal of most families to actually, not to say, you're getting out of my house at age 18. They should be wanting to profit from the child a little bit. If you get along, it's not a control freak thing, and the child should want to profit from them because it should be cheaper rent technically than going out and renting from an independent market their whole survival is based on trying to get somebody's rent. You've been paying mortgage for years, or you've already bought your house. If you're a parent, it's already paid for, ideally, or maybe it's not. But ideally, you want your children to be able to pay for a house early on. so they can invest in other things, business, and be an influence, or grow, or buy some bigger property, have more privacy, whatever. It's none of Fox News' business. It's none of anybody's business. And they could say, I've heard them try to put a number on it. Well, if they're this old or this old and they stay at their parents' house, well, guess what? People get divorced, sometimes go back, start over at the parents' house. That happens. And the world thinks it's crazy. And Fox News people seem to think something like that's crazy. And sometimes, and it's not ideal sometimes. In other situations, in some situations, it may be ideal. If you get along really well and you're thinking, hey, I want to move to the same town you're in, and here, I'll stay there 2 months and save money and buy that house right up there. I've already looked at this house, something like that. Or I'll buy some land outside of town, further out of town. So the goal should be, though, when you're growing up, I think one of the ideal goals, or a typical goal, should be stay at your parents' house until you've bought a piece of property, land. So at least buy land. It's cheaper than buying land with a house on it. And then you can build your own house. And so you don't need a mortgage for that. And so you don't want the banks owning all real estate. So their goal could be, they could have ulterior goals by pushing the stereotype, making it seem ridiculous. I want to mention one more thing before I go on. Nursing homes. They might be wanting to support the nursing home business. They might be wanting to support because it's if somebody's willing to take care of their family right at home, that's better, because the house, usually when somebody's up in age, if they have to go to a nursing home, their house doesn't end up passing on to the children because it goes to the state, or to the nursing home. It goes to paying for the nursing home. And so the family didn't benefit from the house because they either didn't feel like taking care of the elderly adult, or they couldn't because everybody's working. There's no stay-at-home person to help take care. And sometimes, in some situations, it's more difficult than other situations. Like with dementia, maybe, or something. It's hard to take care of somebody. But if you can, your house has value. The parents' house has value once they're gone. If they can't, the parents' house, the value of it all goes to the nursing home. So, is that what Fox News is trying to support when they say those things? Different people on Fox News? Or are they kind of being ignorant? I hope they're not conspiring something, because look at, it could be who owns these rental markets they're trying to push everybody into. They're paying way too much. By the way, so I forgot to mention drug cartels. So who owns the apartments they want them to rent? Drug cartels? American drug cartels, black American drug cartels, white American drug cartels, gay drug cartels, Mexican drug cartels, Russian drug cartels. I don't think there's many of those. There might be. Chinese drug cartels, the whole, let's see, climate change scientists. Maybe they are the ones that feed the drug cartels, international drug cartels. Put different formulas out there. They created the fentanyl maybe and put it out there. So is it the Democrat Party that owns all these apartments? Is it the European Union? Is it a government scheme to say nobody deserves to have land or property unless they have a college degree? And so you're putting it into money all into these colleges. It would be better to stay at your parents' house and go to a local college, economically speaking. I mean, I understand it's okay to go certain places if you want to, but better to go to college part-time, technically, or go to a trade school is even better. So make sure you go to schools try to find a school. Forget about going to the popular school or this or that, unless you're going to pressure them to be a freedom-loving country, moral freedom-loving country. I mean, it's immoral. You want moral freedom, not immoral freedom. Immoral freedom is the freedom to enslave people. It's the freedom to kill. And that's what the Democrat Party still does through promoting the drug cartels. The Democrat Party was the party of slavery, not the Republican Party. But they still run slavery through the drug cartels. That's why they like the drug cartels coming in, because they make slaves out of our ghettos. They have black on black slavery. They call it racist. They call it racist if you say there's drugs in the ghetto. If you say there's more people killing people in the ghetto than there are anywhere else, if you say that there's people in this ghetto stealing from people, they call that racist instead of addressing the problem, because they don't want the problem addressed, because they're not able to make slaves out of people if you address that properly. And so when you're stealing from people, you've got people who are your slaves that you steal. Every time they get something, you steal something. So you're the people they steal from are their slaves. And so there's more black on black slavery in America than any other kind of slavery, that, as far as I can tell. So, and if you're white and Hispanic or anything else, and you want to go into the ghetto neighborhoods, or you happen to like some of those street medicines because they don't have the safer forms available, if it's a natural product, if somebody wants to get their marijuana from the ghettos or through that ghetto network, you have to go in there and obey people. Stand where they say to stand. Go where they say to go. They can overcharge you if they want to overcharge you. All that kind of stuff if you want their product. People, it varies from person to person. Not everybody does the same thing or game. Some people get into it early and they're just trying to make a little money and think it's no big deal. But once people who have been involved in it for any amount of time, they're the violent ones. Democrats they like putting people. That's the part of their slavery, is they like putting people in prison for nonviolent drug crimes, but the violent ones they like to let out of prison. They like to keep them out in the streets, and they like to keep them hurting people and stealing from people and running those streets. And so they use those violent ones to set up brand new dealers and stuff to go to jail for numbers, and it's like a slave system. And then it seems unjust, and they know what's going on. They don't want you to legalize trees, leaves, and teas, which are much safer and have natural appetite suppressants in them and all that. But it's not concentrated forms. It's not the strongest form of medicine. So like a coca leaf tea is not going to be very bad. It's going to be similar to coffee if they had it legal, if you had 2 leaves in a drink. But what they've even done with that, when they've legalized marijuana, is they've made it cost $300 to $500 to get a license in order to get the medical marijuana. And so people are glad okay, they made it legal, but I can't afford that license, so they just go straight to the streets. And a lot of times it has fentanyl in it. A lot of times it has other things in it to get somebody dizzy or make them feel like, I don't want to get caught, and so they can corner them and isolate them and rob them and do those kind of things, and then get them in trouble, get them thrown in jail, and keep the system going. That's a system set up by the Democrat Party. And that's why they like all these other things in there. So the fact is they like the rental system. The drug cartels own the ghettos. They rent out all these houses to people, and they're not expensive homes. They could be fixed up in the inner cities I'm talking about. They mostly own all the inner cities, and those are really neat houses. They're kind of nice style. They're very cozy, pretty style, if you ask me, for most downtowns. But they're taken over by the ghettos and the cartels and the gangs. And the gangs are really slaves in a sense to the cartel, but they're deceived into thinking this is the cool thing to do. And anybody who's against it is really a racist or a bigot. And so in some ways, some people are being a hypochondriac and not understanding the medicinal science, and that there's been a trick played on everybody with that medicinal science thing. So, but here's the thing: they've taken over real estate, and so, and when people go to college and they get this A plus, A plus, A plus, A plus, B plus, B plus, B plus, B, and they finally get a degree, and then you go into the real world, they're like, "Shut up! We don't want to hear you talk. Don't talk religion or politics, and we don't want to hear any proper talk. You got money, or you don't got money. If you don't got money, get out of here. You're not taking our job. You're not taking our job. We've been here. Just because you think you could talk fancy or you got some kind of college degree, you think that's going to get you a job? No. It's, those people understand what's theirs and their rights to what's theirs. But within their own system, they get robbed from. They have double standards. There's tyranny because certain ones go to jail and certain ones don't go to jail. But it's the same ones. It's the violent ones and all that threaten people, set them up, and have them go to jail. But it's black on black slavery a lot of times. It's black on white slavery. It's white on white slavery. It's white on black slavery. Some. It may be the Mexican cartel making slaves out of our ghettos and gangs. It's a mixture. It's a big mixture, a domino effect now. It's all chaos. But the main ingredient is don't speak religion or politics. And if you're not from here, don't come in here. If you don't got money, you can't come in here. So it's not a free country. You can't walk through the neighborhood if it's a shortcut to get to the store. You can't, I mean, you can get by with it, but you can't be in their business. There's a lot of places you can't get by with it. It used to be worse than it is, I think, and but it varies from place to place. But so when they're pushing people, when Fox News and other people make fun of somebody for living in their parents' basement, so to speak, which is a very good thing. You can save money living there. You can write books. You can work a job and go home, write books. You're protected from danger. There's going to be rules there because you can't have your friends over to your family's house. If you follow those things, y'all get along and you have a similar vision. But I would say, and I don't know if I finished this point, but people, to change the outlook of everything, people should say, I want property. I deserve property. Should have property. Before I even have a college degree, I should want my property first. Maybe a piece of land. Buy a piece of land first, then go get your college degree. You don't have to build on it yet, but you can buy a piece of land that's not that expensive and be paying, if there's a tax on it, pay the tax on it and have it something you can sell after you get out of college. I would say do something like that while you're at your parents' house. If you have to, the first summer, well, if you're saving all the money toward college, I guess you can't do it, right? But do it after college then. So that does seem kind of weird to go graduate college, go back to your parents' house if you went off to college. But technically, it would make sense. If you're going there, helping them with rent while you're saving a little money, buy a piece of land. And if they should make it legal to put a tiny house or a tent on there until you can build something bigger. Nothing wrong with that. I'm not saying it's for everybody, but a lot of people, I think there's a lot of people that want to grow in the town they grew up in or build in the town they grew up in. And so that would work well. That'd be a good idea to get themselves ahead because maybe they want to start a business someday. So they can buy the property with cash instead of having to take a mortgage. You can buy even a house that's already built on a property with cash because you saved from being with family. And you helped your family while you were there. But if that's the case, what's wrong with it? But maybe you want to take care of your parents when they get old enough instead of put them in a nursing home if you can. And, so there's a point I wanted to bring, I don't want to forget. And that was and I'm switching back and forth, sorry. But so the drug cartels have taken all the starter homes, smaller homes. I would call it cartels. The cartel linked people, Section 8 houses. They've turned them into Section 8 houses too. That's government. So when the government, this is off to a different subject, government grants and loans. So if the government is giving you loans and grants to start a business, that's okay sometimes. But why do we want it to be to a point where everybody who wants to start a business gets a government loan or government grant? Is that a free market capital system anymore, or is it a government capital system? Okay, it becomes a government capital system, and it's no longer a free market system. So if let's see, and if all banks own all real estate, and the only way to get a house is to get a mortgage or to buy it from the bank, then the banks own all the real estate. And it's probably pretty close to that already. Well, I'd say rent, buy a home if you can, outright with cash, and buy a second home with a mortgage to build your credit if you want to. And with that second home, you've already paid for the first home with cash, right? So the second home, you can rent it out to people, rent to own. And that's just doing them a service, and they're paying for the mortgage by paying rent to you, and you handle the mortgage. But it's rent to own. If they back out of it, you make some kind of deal. If they back out of it, then it's still yours. That's not the goal. I mean, you want to do it fair. You want them to get it, but doing a service to people, because you might end up doing that with smaller homes for homeless people. That might become a side hustle for you. But and it's at the same time building your credit through a mortgage, building your building your name there. I forgot the name they use for that, but equity. So everybody should be able to have land, have their own land. Don't become a rental person that's spending all your money on rent. I'm not saying it's not for any. It's always wrong, but don't be spending high rent. So it's when the government's taken over. I'll say this: they've already done it in big cities. Cartels maybe run the biggest cities because they charge $2,000 to $3,000 rent for places nowadays, and they like it because they live in the big city where there's plenty more to do, right? And so, but it's a trick. That's where the lingo comes from, acting like it's crazy. He's a crazy person for living with his family. And actually, it's crazier to go live with Mr. Caveman or a pirate and split rent and not be able to save money, never really have anything. And sometimes college creates that too, you know. So only big business people own all the small businesses too, or what something, right? Then that becomes it might be what they've done to cause the cartel. Maybe even the Republicans in some ways, or in the ones in media, have a conspiracy, and they're linked to cartels by acting like picking on addicts all the time and making it look like it's a sin to use a medicine, and then knowing that only the strongest forms of medicine are in the streets. People get robbed doing it, and the worst part is the dealers. It's not the drugs itself. It's usually the dealing groups that are the biggest problem, worse than the drugs. Unless they poison it with fentanyl, then yeah. But the other problem is that you don't have the natural plant form, which is the safer form. Okay. Anyway, but they've gotten into the rental industry. So the poor homes are a lot of times not owned. I mean, there's a lot of ways to get ownership still. But it's hard to save money because you got thieves all over the place. You got people asking for money, demanding money, saying it's not fair that you have, if you're in the street homeless or something, you got 2 backpacks. That's not fair. Give me a backpack, and people can put a hit out on you almost for having 2 backpacks. Some places I've seen it. I've seen that happen. And then you can have anyhow I just lost my train of thought. I was going to go more into that. But so the point is, though, that the cartels might be the ones that own some of these rental properties. They've taken over. They've helped take over with Section 8. They have their gangs taking over public housing and surrounding public housing and getting people kicked out of public housing on purpose. Somebody has a relapse. They get pushed their way in the door. They don't leave. They try to take over the apartment and turn it into like try to turn it into a drug den or whatever, and then so people leave or get kicked out, and it's because they were held hostage in their own apartment. But by the way, Joe Biden didn't get kicked out of the White House when they had cocaine in there, but they'll kick these poor people out for having something, and so they're not allowed to tell on the people who are holding them hostage, and then you get killed for being a snitch, you know, if you tell, right? So, and which doesn't make sense. If they're holding you hostage, somebody should be able to protect you from that, right? And you should be protected, and your privacy should be protected. It's your place, and they shouldn't be able. So there's rules that help people take over people's apartments. It doesn't make sense. You let somebody stay the night, and they bring all their luggage in. You're not allowed to put them out. They get 30 days, or even then, or somehow they get around that. More than 30 days, it seems. So and I don't know how. I'm sure the Democrats are the ones that came up with that trick where people could take over your apartment. But so Section 8 and cartels have worked together, I think, and public housing has worked together to help Democrats. It's really Democrats' scheme to take over the rental business and outcompete the low-income housing that would be made in the free markets, but they don't make it in the free markets because most of them, because it's usually dangerous neighborhoods that are low income because they're all taken over by cartels. And typically now the cartels and people in the gangs all know they can pick on any poor neighborhood because that's what we're used to. The police and everybody are used to that happening. So, but if you just legalize leaves, teas, and trees, that might fix a lot of that. And then, because that would also qualify a crackdown on dealers who are not regulated, who could be extorting people, price gouging, ambushing their customers, all these, robbing them, all that kind of stuff, threatening them, So that would fix a lot of that. It wouldn't fix all of it, but it would fix a lot because we realize that it's been a big trick, the biggest scam in history. Maybe have that demonizing certain medicines, but only putting the strongest forms out there and putting them in the street, and then having people steal, the dealers steal from those people, so they think they spent all their money on that. And instead of realizing they just give them a strong hit and they steal everything they have, they play all kinds of tricks. And the truth is, if somebody spent all their money on those drugs, they would be dead. If that was true, it would be dead in the first 30 minutes, maybe. But that's, so there's all kinds of tricks, but they're taking over. Is that who, by the way, is that who Fox News and people wants people to go split the rent with? All those kind of crazy pirates out there. And so what's so much crazier about staying with family for a while until you have saved or bought your own piece of property at least? And what's much crazier about that than staying with all those pirates out there stealing from you? You're never going to have anything, bankrupting you, stealing your identity. You know what I mean? So if you're not with them, then you're stuck in the $2,000-$3,000 apartments that are rentals, and you never own. No rent to own here. So the cartel has helped create that system of rent with never owning, because that's what they do in the ghettos. They make you rent, and you never own anything, and it's already paid for. They're not even having to pay a mortgage on that stuff. They bought it cheap. What do you call them? Slumlords. It's one name for it, but they bought these old houses for cheap, and then they're renting like gangbusters and overcharging people, and they never own anything. Anyway, so then they steal from you and everything. They have people steal from you. A lot of times it's gangsters that own the slumlords are gangsters, and they're letting the gangs steal from you and just keep chasing money so they can put you out in the street even if you live there. You get put out in the street for a night to make money. Keep hustling up some money, or go steal for us. Go take a chance and steal. And so that's kind of what it turns into when you throw out the family system. So I'm just bringing it up because Fox News is pro-family when they talk about marriage between man and woman. And they didn't all used to be that way, but people have become more aware that there was a trick trying to break down the family and steal from people. But don't you understand, the family, what in the world is family for? Fox News, that's my title. So what in the world is family for? It's part of it. It's to have a foundation. It's to have a nest. It's to have a what's the diving, like a diving board, a springboard, I guess I'll call it. But it's to have people in your life who you disagree with, and you have to get along with. You need to get along with or learn how to get along. So people, if they don't have families where you have the people you disagree with the most in life, a lot of times are right there in your own family. So you learn to get along, and some interpersonal skills from that. You learn to have some patience. Sometimes you lose patience from it, but you can decide whether but there's nothing wrong with staying together. It's nobody's business. It's nobody's business. Families, there's nothing wrong with family being there for each other throughout life. And so you have some fails and successes and failures. And on a failure, you have a place to go. They may not want that because they're not used to being around people. But this is almost over. I know I forgot a couple of points. I don't know how I got sidetracked to forget the main points, but I have to end it before 30 minutes. And I guess I got out most of my points, but come on now, look. I just remembered one I forgot. I don't have time to talk about it. But use your stepping stones.